Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it may be from where you're tuning in. Don Fisher here. We have our continued interview series, Mom's Movement and Mindset: How to Break Through Resistance and Transform Your Body and Mind. I have the pleasure to speak with somebody who I've previously worked with. It's a nutritionist, empowerment coach, wellness speaker, author of Beyond Radiant: The Modern Woman's Guide to Health, Healing, and Happiness in Midlife. And of course, that is Marlyn Diaz. Hi, Marlyn. How are you?
Hi, Don. Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing
Thanks for
well.
having me.
Of course, it's a pleasure. You did awesome during my first summit, so I'm glad you're back.
Thank you.
So with all that, right, I just want to jump right in and let you kind of speak and do your thing. So first question to you is, I think it'd be good to maybe kind of, in a way, like define what resistance is, because obviously that is the main topic here. So if you could maybe just give us some examples of resistance that, whether it be from your personal life or things that you've witnessed and experienced working with your clients or potential clients, that potentially got in the way for them to move forward with some sort of program.
Right. Great question. So I experience resistance as someone or something that's coming up against something else, right? So it's like not a free flow energy field. There's some kind of tension that's arising. And so my experience personally and professionally with resistance is when people want to change and then they come up against a block, an obstacle, or some thought in their mind that they're coming up against to move forward. That's been my experience with resistance.
Awesome. So that's actually something I'm glad you kind of worded it that way. Because I don't really think resistance obviously is the person, right? And vice versa. So that said, it's like if somebody like truly wants to change, they have this strong desire to change, why do they come up against resistance if it's something that they really want?
Right. Another great question. And I'm speaking from experience and also from the mindfulness training that I've had through the years. So resistance, I feel like, is a very primal thing that we come up against. Usually it's a mindset or a thought or a fear or some kind of trauma or deep block. Maybe the person failed in the past, so they're going to experience thinking they're going to fail again. And maybe they want to be perfect, right? And they don't want to fail. So usually from my experience, it's all happening in the mind. And a lot of it is triggered by the past and also just our genetic makeup, right? Survival, wanting to stay in the comfort zone and make sure that everything is okay. So there's uncertainty moving forward into change.
And I think that's a very valid point. That's definitely very real. Somebody I'm close with once shared it this way, that like feelings aren't facts. So sometimes the resistance we come up against isn't necessarily, again, the truth or real. Anyhow, that said, when someone does come up against that resistance, is there any like tips, or are there any things that you do and you work with them to kind of help them maybe see it and like overcome it so they can take that uncomfortable step forward?
Definitely. Resistance comes up a lot in my industry, in my field, in my practice, right? People want to lose weight. I'm sure you experience this yourself, with your clients and your community, change their body, change their mindset. We have these ingrained habits many times and patterns that we've had throughout our life. So when I'm working with someone as a coach, I help, first of all, calm their nervous system down. How do we do that? By just taking a couple deep, slow breaths, right? Filling up our lungs. So calming the nervous system down and creating a more relaxed feeling will bring someone into the present moment. And from there, we can look at, and I help them to look at, okay, what's going on? Where's the fear? Where's the uncomfortable? Where's the uncertainty? And let's break it down. And maybe it's too steep a gradient, meaning it's too much change at once. So we can take and scale it back to take a baby step or 2 steps instead of, it's like chunking it down into parts instead of one big step. And it might be like, okay, instead of going off gluten for 21 days, let's start with a week. Let's see how a week goes, right? And then we go from there. So I've done that before with clients as well. Or let's go off alcohol for a week. Can you do that? And then go from there instead of say, we're doing a 21-day cleanse. So we can scale it back. And it's really just, everyone's different, right? Because we've all had different experiences in life and our minds are all working at different places at different times. So it's basically just really getting in tune with where someone's at, listening, holding space for them, and then moving forward from there.
Awesome. So obviously, resistance, right? And like this, again, like these roadblocks, if you want to call it that as well, they don't just, it's not like a magic trick. They don't just appear, right? A lot of times it kind of come in the form of like a limiting belief. Person just, whether it's they don't believe in the program itself that maybe a coach is offering, maybe they don't believe in themselves. Either way, they're rooted deep, right? They tend to not just, like I said, be that surface level. So that said, do you have any examples, or can you speak a little bit to like where some of the resistance may come from, even speaking back to like when someone's younger, childhood, early adulthood, previously in their life?
Definitely. Let's take the example of losing weight, right? So maybe someone comes to me in their 40s or 50s, and they've had a history throughout their life on diets, off diets. Maybe they had childhood challenges or adult challenges with sugar. So they've had a pattern. They've had a limiting belief that every time I go on a diet, I gain the weight back. So I'm usually dealing with that something. And it's usually happening from the past. And then there sets up a neural pathway in the brain that like, that's the way it is because that's always been the way it is, like a limiting belief, and the pattern gets set deep. So it's about, first of all, as a coach, I really take a lot of time when I'm working with someone to sit with them, to start asking questions, to dig a little deeper, to go back and kind of look at, okay, if we're coming up against something, let's take a look at that. Let's hold space for that. Let's examine that. We're not going to be able to get you to where you want to go unless we go over the obstacle, around the obstacle, under the obstacle, or through the obstacle, right? So what's the obstacle? Let's look at that. Let's take a look. And so it's a matter of talking. It's a matter of inspiring, empowering. And also the other thing is creating a future self is really powerful, right? Creating this vision and getting someone excited about their future, excited about the body they want to create, the fitness they want to have, the mindset they want to have. And that's the expertise of the coach, to really hold space. Hold space means just really listening, right? Deep present time listening. And then really creating like an excitement about that future self, and then helping the person see that they can get there. And again, it might be small steps, it might be a leap of faith, or it might be one giant steps, couple small steps. There's no perfect way. It's just really about doing it, right? Taking action.
Awesome. I love all of that. And yeah, no, for sure. Something you said earlier too, with again, like somehow, like, I don't know if you want to call it ego or what, but we want to stay comfortable, right? And so sometimes like making a change, that the change alone can be overwhelming and scary, right? It provides or presents resistance. But can you speak a little bit to how like overcoming that resistance, right? Like you said, over, around, through, how that can help like to create like endurance, right? Or conditioning, so to speak, so that, it kind of reinforces like the behavior itself. So if someone gets past an obstacle, it then becomes, easier to overcome obstacles moving forward. And then you can also face larger obstacles. So I don't know if you, again, with maybe some of your clients or just your own personal experience, but if you could touch on that a little bit as well, it would be great.
Yes, I think as humans, many of us like to stay comfortable, right? Uncertainty can be scary. It can bring up fear. It's fear of the unknown. Even though we may want it, that's where the resistance comes up, right? It's like this old part of us, this reptile part of us that wants to just stay where we are. But then there's this executive thinking, the human mind, the frontal lobe that has the vision of what we can be, our potential. And so moving someone from their comfort zone out of their comfort zone, this happens all the time. I mean, this is why people hire me. I'm sure this is why people hire you, right? They want change and they can't seem to get there on their own. And from my own personal experience, I come up against this all the time. And basically, it has to do with creating an event, doing a speaking gig. I had some resistance before I got on our call today, right? Am I going to do a good job? Am I going to say the right thing? I want to just do great for your community. And so there's this part in our brain that sometimes comes up and chatter, who are you and how are you going to do that? And it's really just working with that inner critic or that piece of ourselves saying, yeah, you can do this. And basically, from my experience personally and working with pretty much most all my clients, it's walking, running, jumping through the fire. What does that mean, right? Personally, I might get a speaking engagement and have some angst or a little fear, adrenaline rushing before that. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. And the only way to really just kind of quell that is get up on that stage. Usually the first couple minutes I'm speaking on a stage, a little nerves are running through me. And then I get into a zone, and before you know it, I'm just speaking and sharing, and it's joyful. It's zone of genius. And I think the same thing with clients. They come up, like I have a client right now. He came to me, he's in Florida, he's a 53-year-old man, and he was really nervous about starting because he didn't know the word cleanse and can I do this? And is this going to be good? And so basically it was just taking a few baby steps, taking a few steps, jumping in. And now 2.5 months later, he's down 15, 20 pounds, feeling great, hired a trainer, a whole different mindset. I see that with all my women clients too, a lot of times, because they've been on and off diets for many years. So to kind of wrap this piece up right now, it's just moving out of our comfort zone can bring up a lot. And the only way to the other side, to where you want to go and achieve your goals, is through. And again, that might be around, under, through, right? Moving the obstacle, but it's the obstacle is going to keep us stuck. And the obstacle can just be a thought in our mind. It can just be, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to get up and work out? In your case with your community and mine, am I being able to get off sugar and change my food patterns? And yes, you can do it.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. It's also been my experience, just for myself and with clients, action breeds more action. And kind of what you said, getting on stage. I think the biggest thing though is it's that transition from not being on stage to getting on stage, pushing through that. So you talked about when you're.
You just brought up something, if I can interject, because there's the piece about the momentum. I want to just acknowledge that momentum is like confidence, right? So the more you walk through the fire, the more you do it, the more you step out of your comfort zone, the more confidence, the more self-esteem, the more that you build within yourself. And that's a reserve, and that's momentum. And then from there, it just catapults you forward. So if I'm doing a speaking gig, the next one is okay, I've done that before. I can rock it. I'm just going to even do it better this time, right? Same thing with a client. Okay, now I've got my 21-day cleanse under my belt. I know how to get off gluten, sugar, and dairy. I'm going to keep going and start working out and thinking differently with a growth mindset. And that's where transformation happens. And that's the beauty of what we get to do, right?
Absolutely. That's my favorite thing. Obviously the physical transformation when it comes to exercise and changing a diet, getting better sleep. that takes a little bit of time, but the thing that comes up a lot is like within a week or 2 weeks, I'll have people even say like, hey, going up the stairs was just like a little bit easier today. I wasn't like out of breath walking up the subway steps. Like that feels great. But I love the fact that you just touched on that, how like, again, the momentum and building off of that, because that is just so true. And it speaks to somebody's experience, and it stinks when it's like, as a coach, sometimes I face that resistance trying to help them get to that step, because there's nothing more powerful than an experience. So one last thing I want to say, and then just kind of get your comments on it too, is like, I've had a client who I worked with, it was a short period of time, but one of her things was, she said she wanted to get her mind right first. All right. And it's been my experience that you can't just get your mind right. We have to behave our way, or behave ourselves into getting our mind right and changing the way we think by changing our actions, usually not the other way around, trying to just think ourselves into behavior. So if you want to touch on that, like I said, at all from like some of your experience or with clients.
That brings up a client of mine, Diana, who began working with me in 2010. She had so much resistance about doing meditation, and also some of the eating changes we were bringing in at that time. She has worked with me on and off through the years. She's in my book, Beyond Radiant. Her stories weave throughout there. And she enrolled in a 6-month plan 2 years ago and wanted to find her joy. She had lost joy. She wanted to lose weight. She lost 20 pounds. She found her joy, and she changed so many things. Though recently I did a masterclass, a Beyond Radiant masterclass, and she was in it. And this just ended this week. And she had an epiphany in that class. All of a sudden, she realized that the beauty of eating was, what am I eating? What are the beautiful things I'm eating? So she began to shift her focus from deprivation, like I can't have this, I can't have gluten, I can't have sugar, to all this beautiful abundance of colorful food and healing foods and everything that we were talking about in the program. And there was like a mindset shift. And she had brought up, she'd been working with me for over 10 years, right? Plus. And so here's someone that now loves meditation, loves journaling, now is focused, but this small shift became a huge shift, and it was integrated into her system. So my point is, these things can happen really quickly, or sometimes they can take longer because we have to break the patterns, and we don't know exactly, like it's just a practice, right? It's a practice, like any musical instrument, any language that you're going to speak is practice. How does Michael Phelps, how does any great athlete get great? They practice, and they go in that extra day on Sunday when everyone else is sleeping so they can get the edge. It's practice.
Yeah. And I think the one word that could kind of like sum it up, like everything you said too, is just perseverance. Yeah. Just not quitting, because like you said, we never know when that moment is going to take place. And sometimes quitting before that miracle happens that's the frustrating thing, but you don't know it, you don't know it. So it's like the best thing to do is to keep going, but easier said than done, the application.
Don, what you just said is the only way we fail is if we quit. I think many people, the resistance comes up because they're afraid of failing, right? So the only way we fail is if we quit. Like, you can't fail if you're on the path, if you're practicing. You can't fail. You might not be where you want to be, and it might take more practice, but you'll never fail if you stick with it. How many times do we quit? And another word that I taught Diana, she shares this in the book, that her favorite word that I taught her was stick-to-itiveness, right? Stick-to-itiveness means stick with it, no quitting. Even if the resistance comes up, even if it's uncomfortable, take a break, take a pause. That could be for anything in life. Just take a pause, take a breath break, go walk away from it, whatever it is, for a bit, and come back. No quitting.
For sure. And I want to touch on that too, because it sparks something in me. But over the course of just one day, as humans, man, woman, whatever, we're going to experience a wide variety of emotions. And if we allow our emotions to dictate our behavior will just be all over the map. So the technique, the skill that you just mentioned about just pausing, right, taking a step away and then returning when you're kind of in that clear state of mind again, I think that's so important, because a lot of times that pause, it's so simple, again, said, but in application, I feel like not a lot of people do that, right? And they just respond and act on impulse, and then that's where the quitting happens. Like, oh, I'm done with this.
Yep. To your point, I just completed a 6-week awakening joy class with a mindful meditation teacher that is amazing. And one of the things that she shared was, when we get in our heads, usually that's where the resistance is happening. Break the spell by going for a walk. Go for a walk outside wherever you are. And if you need to pause, if you need to take a break, even if it's for a day, like, a couple of days from whatever you're doing, take the break, take the pause. But you can break this spell by taking a walk. That dissipates many of the things that are going on in our monkey minds, right? Those bouncing thoughts that are happening all over the place. So again, it's coming back to breath. It's coming back to relaxing our nervous systems. It's coming back to really looking at, like, where's the resistance? Is this my 8-year-old coming up because she didn't like to do the monkey bars when she was little and she has a fear, and all of a sudden I'm comparing that fear to this machine that you want to have me work out right now? Or, it's sometimes our thoughts can be so entangled with our past.
Absolutely. Marlyn, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And again, for everyone watching home, again, we got Marlyn Diaz, nutritionist, empowerment coach, wellness speaker, and author of Beyond Radiant, The Modern Woman's Guide to Health, Healing, and Happiness in Midlife. Marlyn, thank you so much for your time and the value.
Thank you. Thank you, Don, for having me back. It was a pleasure.
Of course, of course.
Bye.